Thank you, wonderful founders, for being here with me today. We have next to me is Lisa Angulo Reid from Dear Flor. Next to her, we have AK, Alexandra Keating from Uni, and we have Jennifer Zuccarini from Flor at the end. And in preparing for this panel, we were asking ourselves, as female founders, what do we have in common, really, with all of you big, fancy brand marketers working in these big, highly matrix companies with all of these rules and all of that? What do we have in common? Because we're founders and we started something small, or we work in smaller enterprises. And I would ask everyone, if you agree with this, to raise your hand, because we found some common DNA, and we're hoping that you feel it too, because it's what we want to connect with you today on our panel. We found that whether you're a founder or you're a marketer in a big organization, we're all dreamers. Do you guys agree that we're all dreamers? And we're trying to bring products to the marketplace. We're trying to solve problems for consumers. We're trying to have meaning in our work. And I think that regardless if you're an entrepreneur working in a large organization or an entrepreneur like our founders, we all share that. So I want to start off there and talk about the dream, the problem that you were trying to solve with your business, and what inspired you to become a founder. So I'm going to start with you, Lisa, and then we'll go down the panel.
So I spent over 20 years working in advertising agencies, largely for big blue chip CPG companies, right? So selling shampoo, selling dog food, selling cookies, like you name it, right? And the gap that I always saw in the consumer product space were things that resonated with the Filipino American community. And so, I know we're going to talk about communities. Obviously, like, as somebody who is Filipino American, this is very near and dear to my heart. And so when I set out to start Dear Flor, we looked at two things. We cared about people that were interested in cannabis edibles, right? And we cared about people that were interested in Filipino culture or Filipino food. And we noticed that there was a very interesting space that emerges when you plot out a Venn diagram of these two cohorts. You add to that the fact that everybody has a Filipino friend, right? So we thought, okay, this could be really interesting. And, one of the questions that I got was, why do you need to do this with cannabis? Like, can't you just do this with a candy? Can't you do this with some other thing? But why cannabis? In my mind, and this was not just for non-Filipinos, but for the Filipino American community as well, we needed to find a way to kind of reframe how we thought of ourselves or represented our people and our culture to the world. So that's why we chose cannabis. So I guess that was the gap?
Yeah, that's a great gap. The Venn diagram is great. So you jumped into this cultural moment and this unbelievable emotional connection you have with your heritage. That's beautiful. AK, how about you?
Sure. So as you've all, it sounds like I've been in CPG for a long time. Beauty is a very toxic industry, both to the skin and the body, but also to the environment. I actually was at the Great Barrier Reef taking my husband at the time for a swim there, and it had changed significantly. But the next day I went further out and it wasn't actually as white and bleached. And it turns out that the tourists that were visiting it were directly affecting the coral, which was pretty crazy to me that one of the 7 wonders of the world is being destroyed by the people who are visiting it. I then became very interested and obsessed with clean beauty, what that means, SPF, all these sorts of things, and regulation. Then I realized I'd also been buying my products in Australia or in Europe, and it was really fundamentally an American problem. And so what I did is I created a brand called Uni, which is ocean-powered body care, that is 100% reef safe, but it is also a beautiful product. It outperforms everything else, all using sustainably farmed algae. So I kind of call it guilt-free luxury. I would say what I'm trying to do is make my dream a reality, because what the customer cares about in America is not sustainability. And so I have to almost trick people into buying the products so they can be better humans. And my brand is very much about aesthetic, it's about scent, it's emotive, and we were talking about this before. All my brand creative is very emotive. It's about taking people to a destination, and then as they buy the product, they learn about all the work that I do on the sustainability side, and they fall in love with me, and they become advocates for the brand. So when it comes to marketing, like, I see my consumers or my affiliates as my sales team, and I use the sustainability as a way of like emotionally hooking them and obsessing into the brand. So it's kind of interesting why I started it and why people are buying it, two different things, but it's actually what makes us super unique and is my fire hose.
That's great. I mean, so far, 2 out of 3, this is grounded in personal belief and emotion, which I think is going to be a recurring theme when you talk to founders. So Jennifer, I love your brand and the way that you've taken the luxury consumer and redefined sensuality. Tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you. So my brand's called Fleur and I started it 12, almost 13 years ago, and I've been in the space for 20 years. But I really was inspired to create my brand to really for women and people to celebrate and embrace their sensuality and sexuality. And I feel we're in a moment right now where prioritizing desire is so important, and actually on a fundamental level is about human connection. And I love, it is a very emotional thing that we do where I want people, we were just talking about how important data is, and we're an e-commerce brand first, but almost everything we do is really rooted in that emotional connection that our customers have, and how we're making a woman or a person feel when they're wearing something from Fleur. That's where we start everything, every marketing decision, every product decision. So yeah, it's been a real pursuit of passion.
My number one ad at the moment is a woman complimenting a woman.
Absolutely.
You're so beautiful.
No, you're just kind of like chasing after her and being like, it was a total accident, and just being like, oh, I'm so sorry, you just like look and smell amazing. And that, and I think that it is really emotive. I think it's really changed is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, the emotional gravity that comes with a brand is not really discussed. It's very powerful, and it's a connection point. It actually leads me to my next question. At RAD, just a quick second on RAD and why I'm here today moderating this panel. It's something all of us share is how do we understand social media at scale? We're talking about emotional gravity, right? How are we able to take the speed of culture, the speed of social, and the emotion and the sentiment and stance that you find in social and bring that into your brand? At RAD, we have an AI platform that does that for our client. And all of us were talking earlier about how important it is to get there fast. If you're seeing a trend, you're too late, right? So how are you using AI, large language models, to understand the emotion, sentiment, and stance that you can bring into your brand? So what I ask you, panel, is in terms of understanding social, did you have a gap in finding your audiences or your micro audience in social? What inspired you from the conversations that were happening that maybe you were able to bring into your brand? And tell us a little bit about sort of that modern culture versus maybe some traditional methods that you formally used when you were at agencies or other brand marketing positions. So AK, I'll start with you.
It's a pretty loaded question. I'll just kind of like take you through our approach. We do everything that's persona driven, which I've just learned that you're amazing at, so I'm very excited to get your report. So we do the personas, and then we take the cohorts, and we actually start with gifting. So we gift to that community pretty heavily, or that cohort, and then we see organically who's working for us. We use NextGen as like our primary tool for sourcing and then managing that. And it's only then that if I see if a little cohort's working that I'll like lean into creating creative for that cohort, and I'll usually use inspiration, whatever's organically come from that community. And then I will run it as statics. Then I'll start, reaching out to some of the bigger influencers, doing deals with them, and then I'll also start doing like scripted. And we kind of like keep running that in different circles. Yeah, so that's kind of how we do it. In terms of like how I work with my community is we run through all the comments, add comments, other people's comments, reviews, all those sorts of things, and then we also run ads from that. So some of our best ads also just come from like little comments that people describing a scent or how they feel or whatever, and then we'll run them as statics and then we'll kind of layer up from there. Does that answer your question?
It does. And what it's bringing me to, because I want to hear from you guys too, because I know your micro communities are super powerful for your brands, but what it's feeling like, and for the brand marketers, is that from a founder perspective, many times we take a bottom-up approach versus a top-down. Bottom-up, let's start with the comments, right? And really learn from those versus starting with, consumer data and going down and trying to find a comment that validates, right? So I think that's really interesting. And Jennifer, tell us a little bit about your micro communities. And I know you've had, many brands, and what you're learning sort of in today's world about the micro communities. And then also, as founders, when you live in the comments, it's painful. You take it all really personally. Please remember that when you're leaving a comment today about this panel. But Jennifer, tell me a little bit about your micro communities, what you're learning from them, the comments, sort of that entire journey. Because I'm also interested from the brand marketers here. Where are you living in the comments? How are you using what you're seeing in micro communities? But Jennifer, go ahead.
Yes, so I actually started my brand, before I launched, I started on Instagram. Our brand was really born there. That was in 2012, which was like about a year and a half, I think, after Instagram started. So for us, I think still today, it's probably how most people discover our brand. So social is so important. And I think today, founders and marketers, we're content creators. That has become, we probably spend as much time creating content as we do designing product and building things. So it's such a big part of what we do every day. I'm out of the comments now. I used to read every single comment, and it was if we got one negative comment, I'd be up all night, very stressed about it. And now I just ask my team for what the sentiment is. If there's something going on, if there's something that's, getting a big reaction. But what I've also learned is, sometimes things that are more provocative and create more discussion and sometimes controversy are actually not terrible things. They elevate and create more attention to what you're doing. So even though it can be painful to go through that intense, if there's an intense debate happening in your comments. But also something that's been lovely about our community and micro community is if there are people that don't like something that we said or posted, we find that our community is the best at defending it and defending us. And they're the ones that are like, no, that's not what they meant. Like, it's kind of funny how your community will stand up for you. And I think that's a really beautiful thing that we've discovered. But I personally have decided not to really live in the comments anymore, and it feels liberating.
I love comments because the more comments and engagement on a post, the more likely the ad's going to fly at a low CPA. So I noticed that girls with nose rings perform really well for me, so I cast them in a lot of our ads because a lot of people don't like it, and then the haters, and then there's discussion points, and therefore the algorithm thinks it's really interesting, and then it pushes it. But yeah, I'm not allowed to respond to the comments because I write, it's not for everyone. And so my customer service team have banned me from talking to consumers. But it's true, like you can't, I'd rather win with my community than try and please everyone. And it seems like my community kind of likes me saying that, but yeah, I'm not allowed to do it anymore.
I mean, as like a newish brand, right? We're only 2 years old. I live full on in the comments. I mean, top down, there isn't a lot of consumer data on Asians, much less Filipinos. So let's challenge number one, right? So you have no choice but to kind of see what is happening out in socials. Like, it drives me crazy, but I live, like, forget going remote. Now that I run my company with one other person, like, Instagram and TikTok are my water cooler. So it's literally like, who's in your DMs? How are you? What's up? Have a great day. See you. And then you respond to all the other comments. And so it's awesome because, yes, absolutely. If somebody wants to slag maybe something we've posted or something we've said. And part of what we do here, yes, we're selling gummies, but for us, we're really about making sure we're sharing our culture and our conversations about our culture with the world. So we do intentionally be provocative with some of the things that we're thinking about. And I lean on social heavily to kind of understand like what is most important to our community. So anything from the LA fires to it's a heritage night, at the Knicks and everybody's super stoked that Jordan Clarkson is here, those are the things that we want to engage our community on. Those are the things that we feel, represent what truly is the best about our culture, which is the community. And honestly, like the other thing, coming back to like socials and TikTok, what really spurred us to do this and think about the brand the way that we do, it wasn't Filipinos talking about Filipino food or Filipino culture. It was all of their non-Filipino and specifically non-Asian friends talking about their view on the culture. There was a woman in Georgia about 2 years back talking about her neighbor was a Filipino woman who would bring her food. Honestly, best freaking review. I'm trying not to curse. Best freaking review because it was unfiltered. She was so enthusiastic about trying it, and she was mispronouncing it, but it was freaking beautiful. Because honestly, amazing testimonial from someone who'd had no exposure to the culture, just embracing it.
That is so great. So first thing is, we're founders, we're totally allowed to curse, okay? I would say that what's so interesting, and I'm super curious about you guys, is that through the comments, through your micro communities, through really understanding what's going on in social to build your businesses, because all of us up here are building our businesses based on social. Have you found out who's not? Like you thought that you had a consumer and social told you, no, that's not it. Or you've uncovered a new consumer audience that you didn't anticipate or didn't know just from being really into social or following those Reddit threads or doing an AMA or having office hours on Reddit. Is there anything that you found that really helped you do two things? Understand either a new audience or when to retire an audience, and also how you're pivoting your storytelling. As founders, we can pivot our storytelling pretty quickly. I've worked in really large, highly matrixed organizations, and it could take like a very long time to react to something that's going on in social. So we're able to pivot quite quickly. Have you all found that that's true for you? And have you found new audiences based on social telling you who they are? You just told us that you have. How about you, AK?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I live, obviously you can tell, I live in the ads, but yeah, I would say like my core audience is millennial women. The two things that they react more to are younger Gen Z girls. And so the more I was like, okay, I'm going to create ads targeted to my customer. She actually doesn't want what other millennial people want. She wants what the younger girls want. And that was like a huge unlock for me. And then also organically, like a couple did really well and couple ads really work really well. So I almost think it's like you kind of know the core thing that works, but it's the stuff around the outside is what is like the unlock for us. But I do everything sort of through testing. So it's really cool with Meta these days because like within 24 hours, on one day you can tell like, should we lean into this or not? So yeah.
How about you, Jennifer?
I think what we've realized not through our social following and customers that discover us through social is we'll have a similar younger, our core demo is women 25 to 35, but we also have about 20% of our customers are that 18 to 24 range, which was a bit of a surprise for us, but I like having that younger customer, and they might not be buying lingerie from us, but they're buying things they can wear out, and that's something we kind of discovered through social and who was following us and commenting and who's following us on TikTok, and also having, we have a lot of celebrities that wear the brand, and like this week we had Addison Rae shopping at our store for a couple of hours, and she posted from there, and lots of younger women, started coming into the store.
I'm 40 and I'm a customer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, we
Yeah,
certainly
same.
have older customers. And that's 40s young, but that was more of a surprise.
Yeah, really.
I mean, one of the fascinating things that we discovered, because we were talking about Filipinos and like cannabis benefits, an interesting side effect were senior demographic, right? So there are a lot of women specifically over the age of like 60 Filipino American on Facebook, and they were seeing our ads, and they're like, after decades of telling their kids like not to do cannabis and like don't you dare go smoke weed, they're like, I saw this thing and there is an ube gummy for sleep. How do I get this? And so I get a lot of people writing us saying, hey, you know what, my grandmother wants to know where to get your gummies. And I'm like, okay, let's go do it.
Grandma's the new it girl, and she's kind of stoned. In my experience, I'm just saying, okay?
Well, look in your auntie's purse. It's a treasure trove. Not joking.
Okay. I'm a really big interrupter, so if anybody has any questions for any of the panelists, please raise your hand and we can kind of riff together. But what I'd like to do is kind of turn it a little bit on you brand marketers and ask my panelists, from having all been in large companies doing marketing and investing and product development, from a founder's perspective, what advice can we give these guys? From sitting where you are now, having known what these large companies, whether it be time to get a product out or how comms calendars are planned, what advice would you give these folks from a founder's perspective, from your experience?
Community and culture are everything. If you don't understand your community, if you do not understand their culture, if you are not a part of their culture, I mean, their bullshit meter is just way too high. And we can't afford to run a business that doesn't appeal to the culture. When we were in R&D, we spent 8 months developing our flavors and our product lines because we believed, again, that a gummy could be an ambassador for Filipino culture. So you can't have a shitty tasting gummy that doesn't reflect us, right? Because then that's just like, anybody can do that. Like, and as a Filipino, I would be just embarrassed to put out something. Add to that, like, we're not allowed to fail. We are the first Filipino-owned company doing what we're doing. So if we screw this up, we're actually just messing it up for the next person that comes along. So I think, yeah, the community and the culture are everything, and we live and die by it.
I think my thing is a little bit more tactile. I think that someone said that quote, like, if it's 100% or complete or whatever, you're already too late. And so I think it's just like if you're overthinking, over-planning, you're going to miss the boat. You've just got to be really, really fast. And you don't, half the things we shoot in-house or, we launch products really, really quickly. If it doesn't work, we just pull it, relaunch it, And so I think you've just got to be really agile. It's just a different world and those days are gone. I shot my holiday campaign last week, and it's with someone who's in a movie, in a TV show that's happening really quickly. And so I was like, okay, well, what's the soonest date? Okay, I'm going to get you out for holiday rather than planning and putting her in for January, February. I was like, she's hot now, like, let's move. And then pull my other holiday campaign. So, like, I think you've just got to be, like, super fast, basically.
My advice would be brand voice is everything. And I think the world really likes sharp edges, and it's about taking risks. And I think we're living right now in increasingly where AI generated creative things are kind of flattening out and becoming, I don't know, a little bit less interesting overall. So I feel that to me is we really think about voice, and I think it's something that as a founder-led company is easier to do than sometimes in a larger corporation where there are many, many people weighing in on a direction and a creative decision. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's that expression, a horse by committee is a camel, where too many people weighing in, it's sort of you lose the essence, right? But I'm hearing two things. One, I loved when you said this, that when you get into the comments, you get in there, hands on keyboards, and you say, we're not for everyone. Like, okay. And I'm just trying to think of what brand said that, ever. I think, was it Domino's that finally said, yeah, you guys are right, our pizza's no good anymore? It was a couple of years ago they had that campaign, and it really resonated, and they had the CEO in the kitchen testing the pizza. But I think for a founder to be able to say to you guys, sometimes you're not going to be for everyone, and it's okay, because the bullshit meter is going to go off regardless if you say it or not. And the other thing is what Jennifer said is don't be afraid to fail. Just do it really quickly. Don't be afraid to fail. Take the risk. Don't wait until everybody in the room is agreeing on something that actually looks so different because it's gone through so many channels, right? Fail really quickly. I think we have the freedom as founders to fail fast, to get over it, to move on. And that's I think, the advice. The other thing that you said, Jennifer, is AI. How are we using AI? What is AI in terms of our business? I can tell you at RAD that we use AI to analyze social at scale, to collapse timelines, to understand what content's going to work for brands, to understand what influencers are going to mobilize your micro communities, and we do it in one day, right? So you don't have to wait 6, 8 weeks to find that influencer that you're choosing based on bias and just brand fit, using AI data, large language models in order to do that. So I think the other thing is understanding the platforms that are out there that can help you and push those platforms, get on their roadmap, figure out what your need. If you have a feature or a function that you're looking for, you want to get into TikTok Shop with social commerce in a way that your competitors aren't, challenge your partners to do that with AI. So I think just being from a pretty advanced AI platform, when we have clients that come back and say, we want you to build this for me, we get so psyched. Instead of, we're done, we live in perpetual beta. I think all founders live in perpetual beta, constantly learning and trying and failing and figuring it out. So again, opening up for any questions if anyone has anything. If there's any advice that you guys want to give to founders from the other side of the aisle.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Mike Cartwright. I work for Influential powered by Captivate, and this has actually been one of my favorite sessions. You guys, each of you in some way, shape, or form talked about the state of what your business is today, and I was curious for all of you, like, what do you need to scale that business in table stakes today? Like, what would be the most important thing that is kind of something you're focused on to help you scale?
That was going to be my last question, by the way, like what's next for you? But let's go there now.
I mean, I just launched with Ulta here, and I have a retail partner in every territory. So we have Mecca in Australia, we have Space NK in the UK, and Ulta here. And so for me, it's really building with them, right? So we need to get to all doors within 2 years. That's my personal goal with every retailer I have, and then there's numbers attached to that. And so for me, it's bringing that customer that I have digitally into retail, but also leveraging and bringing something new to these retailers. And the thing is that with these brands, like we all have the touch points with whoever it is. I'm obviously a very retail-driven brand. I'm like, what do you need? What can I bring to you? So they can't cut celebrity deals. They can't get influencers in. They need other brands to do it. And so I'm bringing them into the kitchen. I'm running things past them and kind of like letting them know what I'm doing and then making sure that they're really happy with it and that they're seeing value and that I'm meeting their goals. So their goals for us is to make body care really big. They need to do that through brands. Like, how do I be their number one kind of thing? So that's what I would say is my core focus is in retailer, but meeting their needs. And the biggest thing that retailers want is net new customers. And so now that I know that, I'm like, okay, great. Well, which demo do you want? What do you want? I'll go do something with them, right? So then I suddenly am not only meeting my forecasts, I'm also bringing in new customers for them. So I think it's just taking our mentality and putting it into the retailer and like helping them is like what's next for me anyway.
Similar for us, we're very focused on retail. We're 90% direct to consumer, but we're opening stores, and that's been such a great experience to connect. People are excited when we're opening a store, and we have that data of where our customer is from being an e-commerce company. But I'm really focused on how we can own the conversation around desire and the content side of that as a way to also continue growing the brand. So that's a big focus for us as well.
Mine is a little different, right? Given the state of cannabis, and we're not going to do a whole thing on state licensed cannabis versus hemp-derived THC. That's another panel. We're not going to do that today. But we can't just walk in a mortar, right? We can't just go into a retail store, right? If we were operating in New York State, we do have a license to make products in New York and be in licensed dispensaries. the single biggest challenge for retail and cannabis is non-payment, right? If you're familiar with what's happening in California, we exited California with roughly $25,000 in unpaid invoices. That was a strategic choice we had to make. Like, why would we keep feeding a system that wasn't going to compensate us for all of the retail revenues out there? So for us, it really is about maximizing and just growing our audience. Again, we're only 2 years old. Like, the easy answer to your question, funding. Funding, full stop. That said, what we need is really just broader awareness of our product. We need the regulatory environment to chill out just a little bit, because that roller coaster is probably the single biggest thing that keeps me up at night. So, strange answer to your question.
I think that my takeaway from those comments are two things. We keep going back to micro audiences, period, end of story. Like, where are these micro communities in social? How do we leverage them? But also, social is the new front door for commerce, for retail. That's where it is. So understanding your communities and how you can push them down the funnel. For me, what I'm interested in, to build on your question, is the role of traditional data versus new forms of data, AI, and intuition as a founder. So my question for the panel would be, when did the data get it wrong? And when did you have to lean in to intuition in a way that only a founder can?
I don't know who said it, but brand equals brand minus commerce. I don't know, does anyone know who said that? It's like a famous marketing quote. But I think that that's really true. The data will perform in the ugliest way, and you'll make money, but you will dilute brand. And so the one thing I really do is like challenge my team to kind of see what's working and beat it with brand, like with more branded assets. And so it's not necessarily that the data is wrong. It's just the data is diluting the brand and having to, pull back and overcompensate or cut it off at certain points to protect the brand is like a constant push and pull that I have.
Yeah, we've ended up disabling a lot of our AI tools because I feel like sometimes where we've used AI, let's say in merchandising on our site, I almost pretty much never like the results of that. So it's something that we end up having to do manually because the way we position, the way we show the brand is everything. And I don't think AI has nailed that yet. Even if in the end that would result in better sales, I can't live with the look of it. It's just like, doesn't work so far, but.
Yeah, I really have nothing to add. Pretty much the same thing. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we don't have much consumer data. So I think, Myers-Briggs, I am an ENTP. I'm over-indexing on the N right now. So it's a lot of intuition.
What we're seeing on our side is clients coming to us and saying, here's our data. It's 18 months old, but we love it. And we're like, really? So it's the ability to bring the data into the speed of social or the speed of culture, right? Which is relentless, let's face it. I'm looking at the clock. We have 1 minute. I'm hoping that you guys have really enjoyed this panel. I know I have, but I'm also hoping that what we're able to show and share with you from a founder's perspective is that data and dreaming are not opposite, right? That you can still hold on to the dream that all of us have in our shared DNA. We can look at the new forms of data, look at social at scale, micro communities, and we can understand from the bottom up what our consumers, our potentials have, and we can respond from storytelling, we can respond from product design, we can respond to reaching out to investors in a way that has emotional gravity. So if anyone has any questions, we welcome them. But otherwise, unfortunately, we probably have to say goodbye for today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.